Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the California High-Speed Rail Los Angeles to Anaheim open house in the city of Fullerton. Just for the folks in the audience to be aware, we are webcasting our presentation tonight so that you can log on at home. If you wanted to see a recap, you could go back home and log on and watch it as well. It's my pleasure to introduce Michelle Boehm, who's the Southern California Regional Director for the High Speed Rail Authority, and she'll be going through a brief presentation with you here tonight that takes about 20 minutes or so. Following the presentation, we will return to the open house format that we have set up in the room here. So you'll be able to go back to the stations and ask questions, or if you'd like to see anything in more detail, we'd be happy to chat with you some more. Also, there is a comment station. Please be sure to either fill one out tonight or take it home with you to complete, because we definitely want to hear your thoughts or questions that you may have. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Michelle.
Thanks, Jennifer. And I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your day to come to the presentation tonight on the high-speed rail project. We have been diligently working on the project for a number of years now and are going out and reintroducing the project to some of the communities that we have talked to about in the past about the project, but we have some really exciting things to share with you about where we are at now in the process of developing this project. So your feedback as we develop this project is vital to us in terms of our ability to be able to design the best possible route for the high-speed rail project. And so we need to come out, we need to talk with and understand what's going on in all of the communities up and down the corridor so that we can best design a project that addresses what is special about your community. What are the special places that your community, folks in your community gather at? What are those special back road secret ways that you get from point A to point B when there's a lot of traffic? Those are the kinds of things that are very, very beneficial for us to understand about the Fullerton area as we further develop the plans for the project. And so we very much would like your comments tonight, whether they be in discussions with our staff around the room, whether they be written comments, and then at the end of the presentation we will also show you where you can call in comments and where you can email in comments, and they are vitally important to us, as I mentioned, as we develop this project. And so you can see here on the screen our agenda for tonight. I'm going to introduce basically the high-speed rail project a little bit and some of the very high-level concepts as to why we're planning a high-speed rail system in California. Then we'll talk specifically about this project section. We'll talk about connecting communities, some of the opportunities that exist with our project, and then we'll talk to you about our timeline and our next steps. So first off, I'd like to talk a little bit about the state of California and high-speed rail. We are all very lucky to be residents of the state of California. It is one of the largest economies in the world, and we want to support and make sure that our economy continues to thrive into the future. And one of the foundations of a thriving economy is commerce. And if you break down commerce, at some level, it's basically our ability to effectively and efficiently move people and goods around the state. That is so important to us as we move forward, that we maintain that ability. And I think most of us recognize that our transportation system is stretched pretty thin right now, that our ability to move people and goods around is impacted by the fact that we have so many people and so many goods to move around. And there's some information up here as well in terms of where we're going in the future. Today we have 38 million people living in the state of California, and according to the state's projections, that will grow to 50 million people by 2050. And so to put that in context, that would be like if today we went over to the state of Ohio and asked everybody in the state of Ohio to move to California. That's what it means to have 12 more million people living in the state. And so we need to start now to address that. We can't wait until 2045 and hope to be able to address that condition. We've got to start now looking at our transportation system and planning for that future so that we can make sure that our economy is able to continue to thrive. And high-speed rail is a new transportation mode. It's not doing the same thing over and over again for the state of California. We're bringing something new to the state of California, an all-electric railroad that is able to travel at a very, very rapid speed. And so this provides us opportunities to connect the state of California in ways that are very different than it's connected today, to connect regions of California together much more quickly and efficiently than they're connected today. And we're thinking about this system a little bit different than we've thought about our transportation system in the past. We're putting the stations for the system in the heart of our major metropolitan areas. We're planning putting stations in the heart of 8 of the 10 largest cities in the state of California in order to really attract people and be able to move them back and forth between our major metropolitan areas much more efficiently than we can today. And of course, we're looking at bringing a new mode of transportation to the state of California. Right now, we have our roadways, we have our rails, and we have our airways. And every one of those systems is really stretched very thin right now. So the idea behind high-speed rail is to bring an additional mode of transportation to that mix. It's not to replace any of our existing systems. It's being planned to complement them so that it can handle some of the overload from those systems and make the entire system work more efficiently as we move forward into the future. And of course, it is all electric, and so it addresses some of our concerns that we have about our air quality in California, as it doesn't emit greenhouse gases when we operate the system. And finally, it is a very efficient mode of transportation for those interregional trips that we talked about, connecting our major metropolitan areas in distances between 1 and 600 miles. High-speed rail is the most efficient way to move people. Every person that moves per mile moves cheaper at those distances, 1 to 600 miles on high-speed rail, than they would on any other current mode of transportation right now. So it is actually a good business decision to bring high-speed rail to the state as well. And high-speed rail is tried and true. High-speed rail is now operating in 12 countries around the world. You can see that there's almost 20,000 miles of high-speed service serving folks, again, around the globe. And there are over a billion annual passengers on high-speed trains as you look around. And I want to assure you that we are looking at all of these systems around the globe, and we're going to bring the best features of each of these systems together as we progress and build the system in the state of California. And so what is that we're building for the state? We are building an 800-mile all-electric high-speed rail system, as we talked about. And you can see here this map. In the navy blue is our phase 1 system, which goes from the San Francisco Peninsula down to Anaheim. It's approximately 500 miles, and that's where this section here that we're talking about tonight rests. We also have a two phase 2 extensions planned for the system, one in the north going to Sacramento and one in the south going to San Diego through the Inland Empire. And finally, shown on this map is additional high-speed rail trains that are being planned right now, but by other agencies, not by the California high-speed rail system. So you can see there's a series of dots going to the east from the Palmdale location, and then there's an aqua blue line going all the way to Las Vegas. And 2 other project owners are planning high-speed service right now that would go from Palmdale into Las Vegas. And so in the future, as we bring California high-speed rail to fruition, and they bring their system to fruition, there will be a direct connection to between those two systems, allowing people then to take a train anywhere they want in California, but also to travel to Las Vegas as well. And so in Southern California, that Jennifer mentioned, that we oversee out of a local office here located at the LA Union Station campus, we are working on this portion of the high-speed rail project. It has the phase 1 components from Bakersfield all the way down to Anaheim, and then the phase 2 piece from Los Angeles Union Station to San Diego. And this is about 330 miles of the total planned 800-mile system. And you can see here that in some locations in the system, we have a lot of route concepts that we're studying right now, and we will keep studying until we hone in on the best possible way to make that connection. And in some areas, we don't have as many route concepts that we're studying. And there's a reason for that. In those areas where, like LA to Anaheim, we aren't showing as many route concepts, the reason is that we're planning to build the train within the existing railroad corridor. Right now, from LA to Anaheim, you have a corridor that serves our freight service and our passenger service. It's where our Amtrak line runs the Surfliner service. And that is the rail corridor that we are planning the high-speed rail system within. And it exists. It's existed, obviously, for many years now. And our entire Southern California area has kind of grown up around it. And we are looking at that particular corridor as the best corridor for us to plan the high-speed rail system within. And so the questions then that we need to answer are, how do we best fit that high-speed system into that corridor? And we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that we do that, and I certainly would encourage you to talk to the folks out around the room after the presentation for more of the information on this. But really what high-speed rail does here by connecting the state is it provides people fast and convenient trips from point A to point B. And they're all going to be faster than our existing trips. In some cases, they're dramatically faster than our existing trips, or how fast you could take a train now. And in some cases, they're a little bit faster than the trips that you could take on a train now. But they will be more regular because we are building some new tracks and infrastructure to allow more regular, frequent, and on-time performance of the trains moving forward. And we're looking at making sure that where we have stations, we're connecting to a whole host of other transportation services. So in order to do that in Southern California, we wanted to make sure that we were priming the pump for bringing high-speed rail to the area. And so the High-Speed Rail Authority has invested money in projects that can improve the existing commuter rail service now in a couple of ways. Number one, we can help make it safer right away. And number two, we can help fund some of the things that we need to either offer more frequent service or to provide connections where there aren't connections right now. And so the High-Speed Rail Authority has provided money for the positive train control system that's being implemented all across Southern California. This is a critically needed safety system that allows every train running on our system to know where every other train running on the system is. It can sense if the trains are speeding, if they're going over the speed limit, and it can sense if the trains are getting too close to one another. At that point, it can send an alarm to the engineer, and if the engineer doesn't react, it can slow the train down and prevent the trains from running into each other. So that's a critical feature that we have invested in. We've also invested in new locomotives for the Metrolink system. These are Tier 4 locomotives, which means that the greenhouse gas emissions from these locomotives would be 85% less than the emissions from current locomotives Metrolink is running. And so as they come in, as they're delivered here in Southern California, and as Metrolink is able to swap out their old locomotives with their new locomotives, we're going to be reducing the amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted as the trains run along this corridor. So we're very excited about that. But we also wanted to take it one step further. We wanted to identify some capital investments that could be made in the system that could be built before high-speed rail is built, that help us build high-speed rail more efficiently in the future, but also provide improvements in the safety and operation of the corridor right now. And there are a series of grade separations across the corridor that we're looking at. In Orange County, we're looking at the State College grade separation and have been talking about advancing that right now. We're also looking at the Rosecrans-Marquardt grade separation a little further north of here, which is one of the most dangerous grade separations in the state right now. And we're going to be able to support that project moving forward and getting built by the end of this decade. And then we're also looking at the run-through track project at LA Union Station, which allows all the trains that operate from the Southern California area up into Central California to go straight through Union Station without coming in and having to stop where the tracks dead end right now at the 101 freeway and then back out and get back in the system. They will be able to just very seamlessly go into the Union Station and drive back out north on their trips. So those are all projects that we're looking at getting done by the end of this decade, if at all possible, to bring that early benefit to the Southern California transportation system. And so that brings us to what we're looking at specifically for Los Angeles to Anaheim. And as I mentioned, we had been planning this project over a number of years, and we have basically hit the reset button on how we're thinking about bringing high-speed rail to this corridor. And I talked a little bit about it at the beginning. We really see the high-speed rail project as part of an overall corridor improvement program. And as we plan high-speed rail to join this existing rail corridor, we've got an opportunity to do a lot of things in this corridor that we won't have an opportunity to do otherwise. We have an opportunity to not only build the grade separations I talked about, but to build all of the rest of the grade separations wherever in this corridor the roadways are crossing the tracks at grade. We now have an opportunity to grade separate that so that we can improve the safety at the location and we can also reduce the traffic at that location. We can take a look at barriers around the outside of the corridor, whatever they may look like, some type of walls so that children and animals can't walk in front of trains anywhere along this corridor, but we can seal it so that they don't have that kind of access to the corridor. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at right now with regards to what we're planning, because we understand that we're planning this high-speed rail service within a highly urban area, and we need to find a way to make sure that we build it in a compatible manner with all of the activities that are going on right now. And so here is the map, basically, of the Los Angeles to Anaheim section. It is approximately 30 miles. And you can see also shown on the map some existing and planned transportation improvement projects that are either in place now or will be potentially being built in the next years. And so you can see how the idea behind what we're doing is not only to provide this mobility up and down the corridor, but it's to connect much more broadly outside of the corridor using some of these other transportation projects. And so one of the key things that we're doing as we're working on this project is working very, very closely with the other transportation providers, Orange County Transportation Authority, the cities, the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, to make sure that we fully understand all of the transportation projects that they're planning and that we plan together in order to deliver a better, more seamless transportation system to all of the traveling public in the future. And the way that we do that, the way that we are moving forward with the planning of this project is through a collaborative and balanced process. And we have to make sure, as we plan the high-speed rail, that we are planning the high-speed rail so that it is safe, that it is fast, that we put stations in the heart of the areas where we can get the most riders so we can have a lot of business on the train, and all those kinds of things. Those fall into the project objectives circle. In the environmental resources area here, these are the natural resources, the waterways, the plants, the animals, all of these kinds of things in the state of California that we need to be mindful of and we need to protect as we're designing the project. And then finally, and not by accident, we have the community up at the top, because as I mentioned at the beginning, we need to make sure that we understand the community that we're building this project in, and we're able to represent that community in those designs and protect the community and the character of the community with the designs of our project. And so that's where you come in tonight and where your comments can really help us, because you know your community better than we know your community. And we can learn a lot, you know, from Google Earth and all kinds of other tools that we have at our disposal, but we can't learn all of what you know about your community. So really, really encouraging you to share that with us as we move forward. And so as we move forward, we have a required process that you can see here on the top 2 lines that we go through as we plan and environmentally clear a large project like this. And we would like to add an extra component to that project. We want to add and make sure that we are weaving in the community component down at the bottom with the project as we develop it according to the rules that we have to follow, so that when we get to the end of this process and have a route concept, that route concept not only reflects all of the things it technically needs to reflect, but it also reflects the communities that the project will travel through. And as we move forward through that environmental process, we will study in great depth all of the situation surrounding the project. And while we're here now working on our route concepts, we're in the light blue area over there with the We Are Here teardrop. We're doing a high-level evaluation of everything in order to understand what makes the most sense as we move forward. Once we wrap up that high-level analysis and come to some conclusions in terms of the things that make the most sense, we will then go into technical studies in each of the areas shown here in the dark blue and study the route concepts that we've identified in very great depth in all of those areas to make sure we really understand the project and we really understand the implications of the project. And it is going through that process that we are able to refine the project in order to ultimately get to the project that we will recommend for construction at the end of this analysis. And we mentioned a little bit earlier that we would like to build in a community component as we talk about the design of this project. And here on this slide, we have some of those things, some of the conversations that we would like to be having with our communities as we advance the project. And it's really about identifying and prioritizing opportunities that can be brought to bear while we're constructing the high-speed rail project. And we've broken them up into 5 different categories you can see here. There are opportunities associated with the environment, with things that we can do in terms of perhaps planting trees, watershed improvements where we could design drainage to re-inject it back into the groundwater system, air quality, of course we are an electric train, and things of that nature. In the access and mobility category, that's where we're looking at those transportation connectivity options. And we're not just looking at big transportation. We're looking at ways to make sure that our first and last mile connections are made, that we're improving pedestrian flow, bicycle flow, we're looking at bus service, we're looking at the full suite of modal options for transportation there and how we can connect all of our systems together better. When we go to the community, we're looking at things like access, health, and safety. As we go to the business, workforce development, and education, we certainly are running a large project that has many opportunities for work associated with it. We have a strong small business goal. We have a community benefits agreement that allows people access to construction that may otherwise have barriers to work. But we also want to extend that out further and look for opportunities that we can work with local K through 12 school districts to encourage students to go into the engineering fields in the future. So that's something that's important as well. And then finally, in the communities where a station might be an option, we want to look at that and we want to make sure that we're working in tandem with the community so that they can fully realize all of the development opportunities at that location. And of course, one of the locations we're looking at as a candidate station is the Fullerton area. We're also looking at the Norwalk Santa Fe Springs area as well. So those are the 2 candidate station areas between Los Angeles and Anaheim that we're evaluating right now. We need to make sure we do a thorough evaluation of those before we decide which of those locations we will ultimately choose. But in both those locations, we're looking at because there is an existing Metrolink system, station there, because there are existing stops and existing transportation connections, that's what makes those locations attractive for us to evaluate for a potential station. So in terms of the next steps, you can see here today, we're basically here to present our proposed route concepts, to talk with you about the fact that we're looking at bringing high-speed rail to this corridor in a different way than we had thought about many years ago, and to make sure that that is well understood. We are going to take your feedback back with us as we complete a report basically that captures all of your comments and recommends a plan forward for further development. We would take that plan basically to our board of directors and talk to them about it next year after it's completed. And at that point, then we would continue on through the process to go into those technical studies and to work with the communities to evaluate those additional opportunities that we would bring to bear as we're designing the project moving forward. And our ultimate goal here is to complete this planning and environmental process by the end of 2017. Here is a list of the open houses that we have been engaging in. We started in Anaheim, and we conclude in Buena Park this week. And so if you have any neighbors that would be interested in getting some of the information we're presenting tonight, please encourage them to come out to our Buena Park meeting later on this week. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, we are open 24/7 for your comments. So if, as you think about everything you learned today, you have ideas or comments you would like to make, you can phone those in to our helpline. You can send those in on email. You know, you wake up at midnight and you have something we have to know about the system, and you might. give us an email, right? We collect all of these comments into a database, and they all support our work moving forward. So again, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention tonight. I would encourage you to go, if now you have additional questions, go back and talk with the folks at the stations, and I'll be up here to the side if you'd like to talk to me directly. And thank you very much.